Welcome to Chasing Impact, Not Sales, where heart meets hustle, strategy meets service, and selling feels good again. I'm your host, Mandy Minatello. Let's go. Hey, welcome back to the Chasing Impact, Not Sales podcast. I am Mandy Minatello, and I just want to talk to you about something kind of funny, not sales related this week, right? But the other day, I posted, as I always do at the beginning of the month, I'll post my book stack from the month before. And I'm an avid reader. So there's usually, I strive for minimum of 3, sometimes 4, sometimes even 5 books that I've read that week. And I'll kind of give the gist of where I was going with them. And so I read a lot. I know that. Right? And people will inevitably ask me, like, are you a speed reader? How do you read so much? Whatever. And the actual factual truth is I've just built it into like my life. I'm old and boring, right? So I read at least a chapter before bed every night. Instead of brainless TV, I really only watch football on TV. So that's Saturdays and Sundays. And other than that, like when the family would normally sit down and watch TV, I'll grab a book. Also, I always have a book in my purse. So if I am waiting somewhere, I dig it out. So when I'm waiting for my son at practice or in a doctor's office or, whatever, I pull my book out. And I am old school, paper books only. My daughter was like, I'm going to get you a Kindle for Christmas. And I was like, please don't. Like, I really like books. So I don't know. That's just me. But I find that people are, I couldn't do that or whatever. And so I wanted to come here and like offer a solution and give a why, right? So I get it. Not everyone's a reader. In my own family, my daughter reads a little. I definitely read more than the boys. So like, I get it. You have a whole vast resource library available in podcast form. And I challenge you to find a couple of podcasts that you regularly tune into. Because here's the thing with books, I absolutely love books. And I'm going to argue, stand on my soapbox forever that true leaders never stop learning. And that if you want to become a thought leader, you want to become a valued mentor, you want to become a trusted advisor in your industry, whatever it is, you can never stop learning. And so that means that you have to consistently and systematically and on purpose, purposefully, intentionally, there's the word I'm looking for, chase that. And it could be in the form of books. That's why I challenged myself. I challenged myself in 2024 to read a book a month. And I realized that was like really easy for me. And I had read 12 books in like just a couple months. And so I was like, oh, let me shoot for the moon, right? And so then in this year, 2025, I said I want to do 4 books a month. And so that's what my challenge is. And I specifically chose categories because I'm intentional about it. So I read books about my industry. So I'm always sharpening my iron with sales. I read books about my overall health. And that could be mental health, that could be personal development, things like that. And I read books about my spiritual growth, my relationship with this life that I am called to for my God, my creator, and, living the life that Jesus calls me to live. Those are my categories. Every once in a while, I throw in a fiction for fun, or because it's been recommended by people. I love when people recommend books to me, and I'm really open about reading. I value what people value. And so that's how I do it. But I'll be honest with you. there are times when I'm reading and there's a thought or a fact or a statistic that's shared and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's so good." And then I go back and I look at the publication date and I find out this book was written in like 2014. And that doesn't actually seem like that long ago, but when you're talking about statistics and facts and stuff, and I'm telling you that it's important to stay on top of your game, there are some times when 2014 might as well have been 1802. Okay. Like, if I were to actually spout that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so old and outdated. So you have to be careful of that with books, unless you are seriously only going to read books that are like written today. Like I read, there's sometimes I'm reading Napoleon Hill and Carnegie and things, and I have to remember when these were published and take out the universal truths, but leave back the things that are, outdated or whatever. That happens with books. With a podcast, your information is current. The author is relevant. It's almost like you're having a conversation with a friend or a trusted advisor, and when you intentionally and specifically seek those people out that are fulfilling the category of what you're looking for, it's like talking to the best and hearing the latest and the greatest, like hot off the press. A lot of times, podcast hosts are also authors, but then they'll share everything that they've learned since the publication of their book. They're like, since I did that, I've actually learned all of this. And you get to hear from them like firsthand, like hot news. So, like, I challenge you, pick, you know, at least one, but like two or three categories that you want to grow in, that you find will edify you. And like I say, sharpen your iron. And then go find the best of the best in the podcast world and go to them for advice. And what happens, at least it happens to me, I have these people that like, actually, I've been lucky that I have met some of my podcast people, but like you think about it, usually you haven't met these people, but like you think of them as your friend. And you're like, oh yeah, I was chatting with my friend the other day. And then you're like, oh my gosh, that wasn't my friend. That was a podcast. But you feel like you get to know them because you're checking in with them weekly. And let's be honest, the older you get, the smaller and smaller your friendship circle gets. I have friends that I don't hardly ever talk to. They're like, I consider them my best friends. But like, if I were to think about a podcast that I listen to regularly and intentionally, and they have a new episode every week, like, I definitely hear from them more often than I hear from my best friends, like in real life. Right. So, like, I have made a joke of it. And I love these people. And if they happen to listen to this, that I would just be honored and blessed. But like people like, okay, Ed Milet, in my head, he is that like sage uncle, right? Like he is cool and he has done it. And he's here to share the good, the bad, and the ugly, and he's funny about it, right? Mel Robbins, in my head, she's like that super smart girlfriend that I look forward to having coffee with because we see eye to eye. She gets me. She understands, and she's just like one step ahead all the time to be like, girl, like I love that, right? Go find your people that are the geniuses in their field. And then invite them into your life. Like, I mean, maybe I sound crazy and you can tell me if I am, but invite them into your life for your own personal development, you know? Because I can tell you as a podcast host that there is this burden to make sure that my audience feels encouraged and that I stay relevant. Like I would love nothing more. Like put it on my bucket list. Like for someone somewhere to be out there having a conversation with someone else someday and being like, I heard the other day, blah, blah, blah. And they're sharing something that they heard, right? And it was something I said. Like that would be amazing. I would love to be that sage advice, that expert in the field for you if you're looking for that role in the field, in the industry of sales. Like, I would love that. That's what I'm here for, right? We feel as podcast hosts a burden to always want to stay current, to share current industry trends and best practices, because that's what makes our podcasts relevant and real and exactly what I'm talking about. You don't go back to the publication and be like, oh, shoot, that's a fact from 2014, which might as well be 1802 in the sales world, whatever. But like, no, like, I want to stay current. I want to stay relevant. I'm always going to share, like, this just happened or this is what's going on. This is the trend that we're seeing. So, like, if someone somewhere is like, oh, I was chatting the other day with one of my friends and she was talking about how, you shouldn't have a script in sales and whatever. And it was actually something I said, like, I did my job. I'm sharing relevancy. I'm helping the industry. I'm trying to rise all ships because I know how important it is to be relevant, how important it is that the burden that I have to share with the industry what I know. That's what I've been called to do. And I challenge you, everyone out there, to make the effort to grow. Like, you always need to be getting better. You always need to be growing. And with the podcast library of zillions and zillions of options out there, you have no excuse. You have 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day, 30 minutes all at once, or whatever. And another insider tip, when you're listening to a podcast, depending on the host and how they speak, if they speak slowly, jack that puppy up to 2x speed. Then a 30-minute podcast becomes 15 minutes of your time. My husband tells me that I speak way too slowly. Like, honey, click it up then. Because you don't have to listen to me at 1.0. Anything you're listening to me on has the ability to speed it up or slow it down. I can't imagine anyone needing to slow me down, but whatever. You can do that. And you have no excuse because you're in the car, you're on the treadmill, you're waiting in line, you're whatever. Grow. Grow your sphere of influence by growing your own personal development and utilizing this library that you have. And the last thing I'll say is the other cool thing about podcasting. And I kind of shared this earlier that, like, I've had the opportunity a couple of times to meet podcast hosts because it has opened this whole new world. Like, quote unquote, anyone can have a podcast, right? Like, but podcast hosts are the kind of people that are searching for relevancy. They're also searching for connection, and they understand that they are the voice of many. Most of them. I don't want to speak across the board, but they're approachable. So, like, they're asking, almost every podcast ends with, give me a review. Let me know what you think. What topics do you want to hear? They're looking for your feedback and they're asking for your connection. If you have what I call a podcast bestie, you have that sage uncle, you have that trusted friend, you know, that person, but you've never actually met them or you've never actually connected. Be bold. Send a review, ask a question, give an idea, reach out. True story. I've met Shalene Johnson, who's one of my podcast besties. She didn't know I existed. And, I met her, had an opportunity to take pictures. She is the sweetest. She does not know who I am, but, like, you know what I mean? Like, I reached out and I got an opportunity to have that and have a sit down and chat with her. I've met Ed Milet. On my bucket list for Mel Robbins. I mean, these people, but you can do that, reach out. The podcast world is just different. It's open. It's a whole new experience. And I encourage you to take advantage. Find your circle of quote unquote podcast friends, and really see where it could take you. So back to the beginning. Read. If you can't read, listen. And then grow and share what you learn. Because the more that we learn, the more that we grow, the more that we never, ever stop, the better all of our industries are going to be. And you literally have no excuse. Let's go. Thanks for listening to Chasing Impact, Not Sales. If this episode sparked something, share it, subscribe, and remember, real sales come from real service. Keep chasing impact.